So welcome to the first day of GPT Dreaming. I'm really excited to say that we have Vala Afshar, the Chief Digital Evangelist for Salesforce with us to do the keynote. He's a prolific blogger on social media and you can follow him on LinkedIn alongside the other 35,000 people. So I highly encourage you to do that. He also writes for ZDNet and hosts a regular show on a Friday morning called Disrupt TV with Ray Wang, the analyst from Constellation. And if he wasn't busy enough, he's also the best-selling author of his latest book called Boundless. Boundless is a new mindset for unlimited business success and really opens our minds to what it takes in this now digital, totally connected world. Tom Peters called it a masterpiece. So I encourage you to go to Amazon, buy a copy, read it, because there's so much valuable stuff in here. So Vala, first of all, thank you for joining us. I know you're clearly very busy, so can you first of all start by really giving us an idea about AI within the context of the book?
Ian, I'm floored by your kind introduction. I wish my parents were here to listen. Perhaps they'll attend the next event. I wrote the book mainly to remind business leaders the negative impact of silos. I'm an immigrant refugee, so I had a silo mentality for most of my life. Silo, by definition, capture resources, protect those resources, and extract as much value as you can from those resources. So as an immigrant, my parents constantly remind me, you need to have a good education, diploma, a good job, maybe a managerial title, budget, headcount. So I spent the first 40 years of my life capturing resources and protecting those resources. Now, today, businesses, the biggest challenge businesses face, and we have research that speaks to that, one of them is data silos. And we know that we're at an inflection point in terms of artificial intelligence, where we've witnessed the age of being able to predict outcomes in the last several years, generating new content, new solutions. And we're entering what may be the autonomous phase. So predictive to generative to autonomous. Think about your autonomous self-driving car. 10 years ago, if I was backing up, maybe it would beep if I got close to an object. My car today has a camera from the top, camera from the side, color-coded warning. So eventually it'll speak to me in a language and tone that I understand, I'm comfortable with. So this cognitive download from the driver to the machine, so much of the software today that's in the enterprise has the ability to also guide you and create opportunity for hyper automation, for autonomy, which will allow us to remove mundane, repetitive tasks that are deterministic in nature, giving us workers time to be creative, to be mindful, to be deeper in terms of our experimentation, adoption, and optimization of solutions that we invest in. So in my book, I talk about design thinking principles that can help optimize flow. Again, opposite of silos, holding on is actually maximizing flow, being deliberate about identifying points of friction and removing them. We're very creative as human beings because flow is around us all the time. We just come up with creative ways of disrupting it in a way that delays the ability for us to deliver value at the speed of need. And I think, and we saw this during the pandemic, that as the world is, as a knowledge-sharing economy that's hyper-connected and becoming more and more decentralized, delivering value at the speed of need is going to be difficult. And the companies that can do that well, companies that can remove friction, companies that implement design thinking principles with outcomes based on a shared success mantra. It's not just employee success or customer success or partner success or community. It's all. Those are the ones that are going to be able to win. And I think, 31 years ago, this scientist named Tim at CERN, Particle Physics Lab, worked on this project that ultimately 31 years ago was launched as the web. My company wouldn't exist without it. Your company wouldn't exist without it. So you look at the 10 most valuable companies on earth today, they're all internet companies born from this technology 31 years ago from CERN. And I think CERN or the web, in my opinion, is perhaps the most important technology in terms of silo busting, scaling, distribution, and access to information and knowledge. I often tweet: if you have access to if you have access to internet, you have access to education, and you have access to employment. Um, I have the same point of view in terms of AI. I think it's as perhaps even more impactful. Electricity, maybe for the 21st century. So, long answer to your question. It's important for those of you, who, obviously, the audience here. We're the privileged few. I can't imagine anybody that's watching us have this conversation hasn't experimented with the technology that I'm talking about for the last 2, 3, 4, in your case, 10 years. So, or maybe more. I hope I'm not cutting your CV short. But we're still an incredibly small uh, um, community experimenting and implementing and optimizing solutions in this space. So it's an awesome responsibility for carry that torch, knowing that not only your own career, but your team, your line of business, your company, and the ecosystem that you're a part of will vastly benefit or not based on how deliberate you are understanding the technology and making the best use of it, whether you're in sales or service or marketing or commerce, frankly, any line of business. So, yeah, it's important. It's important.
Well, I think I remember we used to talk about the internet divide, where certainly governments were worried about those communities that didn't have access to the internet and how they're going to fall behind. I think we're almost getting to a point where there may be a GPT divide, where those organisations where they're leaning in, embracing it, encouraging their employees, versus those who are saying actually there's too much risk, we're not going to do this, and they're likely to fall behind
They're definitely,
if you end up on the wrong side of the GPT divide.
absolutely. One of the reasons why my company decided 7, 8 years ago to launch Trailhead is because we recognize. I think most companies know this, most leaders know this, that the divide that exists is because there's a lack of access to affordable, concise, relevant education. My oldest is in college. My middle child is about to graduate high school, and my youngest is about to enter high school. And I think a lot about skills, transferable skills that my 13-year-old skills that I keep telling him read and write. I don't care about GPT. You still have to be able to read and write. But my 21-year-old who's about to graduate next year from the university studying computer science, it's amazing. I have a different perspective in terms of the skills they need and the impact on work. And this divide, as you said, continues to grow. 72% of Earth's surface is water. It's somewhat finite amount. Let's hope. Let's hope it stays in the 72%. But only 1% of the water on Earth's surface is safe to drink. When I think about AI, every AI project starts as a data project. So I think about data a lot. Again, I used to run engineering services and marketing as my last assignment before I joined Salesforce. So 20 years of practitioner and use of CRM to help grow. And my company did triple in size in terms of revenue using Salesforce. That was the topic of my first book. But when I think about data, I think about water. A lot of times you hear, because right now, if you look at the most valuable companies on earth by market capitalization, companies like Amazon and Google and Microsoft, and now NVIDIA, I think, is number 4, which is an incredible signal to us. And I can talk about that. A lot of people sometimes say, data is the new oil, because these are all data companies, data-driven companies. But I think of data like water. It has to be clean. It has to be affordable. It's got to be accessible. And when you look at the Gartner research that they published late last year, November of last year, looking at medium to large size enterprise, they found only 4% of the data that businesses have today is ready for AI. It's clean, accurate, ready for modeling. The other 96% is not. Much of it because it sits in silos and it's not integrated and shared across the business as a whole. Now, unlike Earth's surface, that 72% that's fixed, fairly fixed, the amount of data we have now is going to double in the next 2 years. So that 4%, if the maturity of companies stayed the same while the number doubles, we could be just like that 1% of the data we have in business is going to be useful to us. And the connected MuleSoft research that came out last week, I encourage all of you to download this research. It's a survey of 1,100 CIOs around the globe. Integration and data silos were the two biggest impediments for AI adoption in the MuleSoft research. And the integration spoke to 991 apps on average, 991 apps in the enterprise. The shelf life of an app being only 4 years. So it's like the yogurt in your fridge, data. You don't use it. After a while, it's not delicious. You need to throw it out. This is why it's important to. This is why we invented Data Cloud, to really resolve this stale element of data. And only 27% of the 991 applications are integrated. Now, when you go to IDC and they tell you only 12% of businesses share customer data across all lines of business, 9 out of 10 companies today do not share customer information across the entire enterprise. How are you going to delight your stakeholders in an experience-led economy where trust and speed and intelligence and personalization are all currencies that we care about if you let that gap continue to grow? And this is what your company does best. We're a customer. So the fact that you give us visibility with elements and you allow us to integrate our processes, understand with triggers how to adjust in real time to maximize our full potential, to get to a boundless state. I should have interviewed you in my book. I apologize. You'll be in my next book, I promise, which I'm in the process of writing. It's the gap is winding. It's sad and it's true. This is why my company founder at Davos this year, World Economic Forum annual meeting, it was a pretty profound comment from our founder. He said that AI must be a human right. It's so pervasive. It's so impactful. It's even beyond business conversation. Can you be healthy if you don't have access to technologies like AI? You certainly, in my opinion, can't compete and win moving forward. So, and I don't think my founder has ever said that about any technology, including cloud, which we're pioneers of, or mobile, or social, or Internet of Things. So for someone to make that statement, it's a reminder for all of us that it's not hype. It's not hype. And I mentioned NVIDIA because we're a software company, you and I. We're a software company. But when you think about what we've witnessed in the last 10 years, certainly the last 3 or 4 with generative, the whole nature of computing is changing. Founder of NVIDIA recently talked about, transformation of computing as a whole, where for most of us, usage of computing is for retrieval of information. I push an icon, few electrons go to a data center, and I get something retrieved and sent to me in near or real time. But the nature of computing now is that it's not just retrieval, but generation. And retrieval and generation has transformed not just software, but hardware. You now have a $1.2 trillion market cap company who for years has been thinking about retrieval and generation in real time. And so as companies like yours and mine build solutions across all lines of business, we now have to serve our stakeholders more than just retrieving information, but creating net new content that's trustworthy, that's relevant, that's concise, that's impactful. And companies that don't leverage AI are going to miss that generation part of computing that companies like NVIDIA, Element, Salesforce are working on. So this is big. So again, folks in the audience, we are the privileged few. We understand dynamics of trends. I mean, my company, 10 years, we've been working on this journey. It's nothing new to Salesforce. And this is why we're a market leader. It's because our ability to anticipate and see the future. This is ultimately what separates Elements and Salesforce and NVIDIA and these technology. Innovative companies answer the questions that our customers should be asking. So if you are listening to Ian and I, and you're in front of a customer after this conference, and you see you have an hour or two meeting, and AI is not part of the conversation. We're not talking about language models. We're not talking about prompting best practices. We're not talking about delivering value at the speed of need. It's our job. Of course, it requires courage and knowledge, a certain level, to raise a hand and say, with your permission, I want to talk about what's happening right now and how the fastest growing companies are leveraging these technologies. So this is what a trailblazer does. By definition, you're going to places where you're not following someone's footprint. You are blazing a trail. And this is the best opportunity in my 25 years of being a technologist where we can truly be trailblazers by earning trusted advisor reputation with our clients and our peers by being knowledgeable in this space.
So let me take you back to a couple of points you made, because I think it's fascinating in terms of your perspective about how AI is going to transform everything. It's a human right, but the numbers tell a very different story. So research I saw, 97% of companies say urgency to deploy AI is increasing. And 84% of those people said that AI will have a significant impact. Yet, going back to your water analogy, only 14% of organizations said that they have the data and the processes to be ready for AI. But actually, there's another thing happening that's a really interesting dynamic. When you start looking at employee use or individual use, their usage is really high. So we've got corporations saying, no, not yet, wait. Whilst at the same time, we've got their employees voting with their credit card, voting with their browser and saying, I'm going to pay for my own AI so I can actually get the benefits from it. And somehow we've got to break this block. So what do you think that's holding people back? Is it, or organizations back? Is it trust? Is it data? Or are they just scared of what the future of AI looks like?
All of the above. You know, you and I are old enough, although you look much younger than I. This is the last time employees spoke with their own wallets. In 2007, this whole revolution of bring your own device, now it's bring your own language model, bring your own generative solution. The fact that this was more powerful than your flip phone or whatever you had at the time meant that you went and bought it and you brought it to work and you used it. And smart IT leaders recognize that, you know, you can't. It's like when I think about disruption, I think about the late Professor Clay Christensen, who's in Boston, former Harvard business professor, who wrote Innovator's Dilemma, which actually impacted Salesforce leadership. And he's written, I think 18 books on disruption. In his book, he said, you may hate gravity, but gravity doesn't care. Substitute AI into that gravity. By the way, mobile, social, cloud, all of these was. I want to answer your question because it's a multidimensional space. Can I share my screen and show you something? I just want to share and this is just a digital twin of a few slides that we have that we speak to AI. So I start a lot of times. Trust is a barrier. So when I'm in front of executives, I often find myself talking about our trust layer and how when you input a prompt, the various filters that are there to get to clean water. So the prompt starts here and it goes to, you see lighter blue. So all these filters are creating clean, drinkable water. Often because integration is another impediment and data silos, I'll hit the data button here at the bottom. And, the conversation is about, look, every AI project starts with data as a data project. So we spent, we had 3,000 engineers for 3 years building what we call data cloud, so we can take, for example, unstructured data sitting in a lake or structured data in a warehouse and harmonize all of that, not have to duplicate and bring efficiency because we wanted the work to be done in real time. And ultimately, there is this harmonized data that feeds our applications. So it's data cloud as a underpinning our capabilities. So this trust layer, and I'm going to hit the platform button here, is just the fourth layer of a technology stack that starts with hyperscaler integration capabilities at the very bottom, data cloud that allows us to, again, access structured and unstructured and harmonize using technologies like CDP that was generally found in like the world of marketing for segmentation and activation. Now it's pervasive through all of the applications. This is part of the data harmonization effort. And of course, the trust layer you see is built in the middle of this stack, and it has to be integrated to all of the platforms because it's an enterprise requirement. Now, when you haven't had the foresight to think about the tech stack, the skills you need, the talent you need, the integration and strategic partners you need. One of the things that I try to remind folks, and of course, this team knows this, the audience at this conference knows because they've been part of the journey with us. This is not something that started in November of 2022 when ChatGPT launched, to the world. Here's our prompting and access to our large language models. We've been on this journey for 10 years. Salesforce Einstein was launched 2 years after we acquired, AI companies. Along the way, we acquired multiple companies. 2018, we launched, and I believe it's the first company in Silicon Valley that had the Office of Ethical and Humane Use of Technology, and that led to additional acquisitions, additional design principles that we follow. Along that 10-year journey, we have over 300 patents, hundreds of research papers, multiple councils that help us make sure that this is ethical use of AI, because as you said, trust and integration and silos are impediments. And ultimately what this means is that every line of business can benefit from this example of generative. And it's not just generative, as you know, you're an AI domain expert, whether it's large language, whether it's natural language processing with our chatbots, whether it's computer visioning in our marketing cloud offerings, or generative AI. It's a combinatorial set of subsystems within the category that enables us to bring benefits. And you can deep dive into a line of business like service, where speed to resolution is how you build advocacy and loyalty. Any company that has a strong net promoter score as a result of good service, it's because they're delivering remedies in the fastest possible way. My prior company before I joined Salesforce had a net promoter score of 81. And we achieved that net promoter score because first contact closure, hold time, talk time, all of the combination of KPIs that spoke to how fast are you able to solve a problem. How can you create preventive maintenance and proactive service offerings so you don't have to have a frustrated customer on a chat or an app or a phone, various channels, talking about your brand not delivering on your promises. So again, it's to answer your question in terms of adoption. If you're not invested in a trust layer, if you're not invested in a modernized stack, if you're not partnering with companies that have had a history of innovating, especially with emerging technologies, and you don't have this pervasive throughout your company, it's not good just to have AI in sales or in service or in marketing. This is a team sport. You're going to be at a disadvantage. My good friend Ray Wong, who's a founder of Constellation Research and my podcast host, in his latest research points to a trajectory that almost 70% of Fortune 500 companies will disappear by year 2030. Right now, it's around 62% of the Fortune 500 companies since year 2000. I apologize. Since year 2000, we've seen this incredible, attrition through bankruptcies, mergers, and acquisitions. So even the largest companies with the most revenues are not susceptible to disruption. And this is why I have such a strong point of view on AI and an optimistic point of view. And frankly, it's people like you that keep me optimistic, because at the end of the day, my experience is that, the pessimist might sound smarter, but it's the optimists that create the future. So I'm certainly an optimist when it comes to technologies like AI with guardrails. And I say that in that there's going to be a human in the middle for the next 2, 3, 4, 5 years. But that's a short amount of time. I'm not saying beyond 5. I think the human in the middle is going to be there by 2030. It's going to be far less. We are going to see an autonomous enterprise, and that doesn't mean less work or less job opportunities, in my opinion. Maybe an elevator operator lost its job in the last 100 years, but I think for the most part, we invent more fruitful, more interesting, more dynamic job opportunities, and I think this will be the case as well.
But it sounds like we've got a lot of work to do. I mean, back to your 4% of data is actually clean. The other point is, if we've got clean water, we need to put data governance, so we've got nobody polluting it. Once you've cleaned it up, let's stop people dumping
Great point.
that Excel spreadsheet. So we've got to keep the data clean. So there's some disciplines of data governance. You talked about breaking down silos. I mean, like I said, I'm passionate about understanding the end-to-end business process, so we can break down those silos, so we can understand what the data is.
This is what Elements does best. I apologize for interrupting you, because you have such a deliberate, wide spectrum view of end-to-end processes and all of the touch points and all of the interdependencies. My sense when I see demonstrations from Elements, or see demonstrations with Einstein for our platform across different lines of business, when I think about our autonomous enterprise, I think that there's less need for orchestration. I don't have a leads manager, service manager, sales ops manager, people that their sole job is to look at the interdependencies, determine if we're on budget, on schedule, push the right buttons, facilitate conversations. And by the way, in an average enterprise, there's probably 50 cloud solutions. So you always need orchestration of some type, because you're orchestrating a tech stack that's getting smarter and larger per se. But when I'm in Boston, when I go to the Boston Ballet and I see the ballet dancers on stage and they hear music is data. So they receive input, music. They know exactly where they need to be on stage. They know exactly where they need to move to. They likely know exactly the people left, right, front, and back and where they are. It's choreography. And so people know they're empowered, and they have the right tools and the right training and the right culture, a space to experiment and master their craft. But this delegation is to a point where it's choreography. And anytime I see Elements demo, I feel like you're enabling the enterprise to choreograph the next best action, because you've removed all the blind spots and you've removed all the questions in terms of what's the thing I need to do right now to positively impact my team, my organization, my company, my ecosystem, my partners. And that's a beautiful thing. And that's going to get faster and more pervasive. And frankly, without it, I just don't know how you can compete. In an average B2B sales cycle, your buying decision team is about 12 strong. 12 people that make a decision. This is in the enterprise space, maybe not in SMB. So 12 people, that's 12 different personas. That's 12 different buying process maps, journeys. I'm a social executive, so I'm going to be looking at the social web. I'm going to go on forums and ask questions. I'm going to look at, various digital platforms. I'm going to lean into my connections. Probably the last thing I'm going to do is have a vendor do a demo for me, a proof of concept. I'm probably 95% through that journey before I engage with a vendor. That's when I was in the buying position. But that's just my buying process map. So how does a company, without insights that your company provides in mind, how do they deliver the right content at the right time, on the right channel, to the right person to help reduce the sales cycle? And there's 12 of us that we need to get to. and we have 200,000 customers at Salesforce. How do you do that? Like, you can't. So for those of us who think that, tech, and by the way, it's not technology as a number one success factor. I actually have it like number 5 in my. It's for me. It's like culture. It's people. It's process. It's strategy. It's lastly technology. Maybe I shouldn't say that. Are we being recorded as a technologist? No. But I'll say it because you and I have built companies, and believe you me, you can have the best tools in hand. You have the fastest car in your garage, but if you haven't learned how to take corners, how to drive safely, and leverage the engine that's there, it just looks good in the garage. So I apologize if my conversation is text strong. I just think to get to your boundless potential, you can't ignore it. With the right culture, with the right people, with the right processes, with the right strategic partnerships, there's technology today, and we're in the era of abundance, not scarcity. The solutions are there. Yes, we have a lot of work to do to properly implement and make sure we have societal positive impact. I mean, business is the greatest platform for change, and your values can create value. So yes, we have a lot of work to do. But if you're ignoring technology, you're not going to be able to compete. You're not going to be around. You're not going to. I just said I was an optimist, and then I ended with that statement. Sorry, I'm still an optimist.
When we saw cloud come through, we saw clear winners out of that. If I remember back to, the last company we built actually grew as an on-prem company to a cloud company. I was on stage a lot talking about cloud. We were one of the first Salesforce customers in the UK. And I remember people saying, okay, CI's going, we'll never put financial data. Financial services companies will never be in the cloud.
Right.
Life sciences companies will never be in the cloud. Yeah. We think about, we have life sciences cloud. We have financial services cloud. Sure. We have Encino, one of the largest platform
terrific company.
ISVs.
Yeah.
So it takes a while before there's a level of confidence that, yes, this technology can be applied. But I think we'll see new companies breaking through because they understand what's required. They understand how to manage the risk. Yeah, there's still going to be risk there. It's actually how you manage it.
Sure.
So if we think about that and then turn our attention to everybody who's out there listening to this and thinking about their careers, I think you said at the beginning, we're in a very fortunate position to be actually at the forefront of this, thinking about it, on really playing with it and finding the use cases. So it feels like you've got two options. You either take this to your senior executives and say that build a business case for why we should be piloting it in some way,
yeah,
or go and find an organization that's already doing that.
Right.
But I think there are some quite big career decisions that people need to start making in terms of their education and also in terms of how they map their career path.
That's an excellent observation. And I think about you 20 years ago, standing on a stage with all these smart people, because obviously if you're speaking at a venue, it's business leaders, technologists, scientists, engineers, and you're advocating, let's take the most important asset you have other than your people, like your customer data, in a highly governance-oriented financial, healthcare, government, and let's put that data in this thing called cloud, whatever that was, whatever that meant 20 years ago. And yeah, maybe there were the engineers that understood the impact of metadata and multi-tenancy, and they understood that the security guardrails were there, but even they had doubts 20 years ago. But what gave you the courage to do that was the ability to challenge dominant logic. Dominant logic was you wouldn't put your data outside of the walls of your company. You had a fiduciary responsibility to secure your customer data. 20 years ago, if you and I were venture capitalists 20 years ago, and this guy comes to us in San Francisco and says, I got this idea where strangers are going to get into strangers' cars and go from A to B. And they don't have do they have a medallion? Is it a government sanctioned organization? Or I've got an idea to rent my home space to a stranger. Or Blockbuster is cool, but you could potentially eventually 3G, 4G, 5G stream movies to your home. Dominant logic would have prevented you and I, maybe not you, but me, to invest in Uber, invest in Airbnb, invest in Netflix, And this is just in the last 20 years. I mean, so are you plagued by dominant logic today? Are you sitting there preventing your career to grow because dominant logic says machines can't write email as well as I can? Machines can't build relationships with my prospecting customer. And by the way, it's not customers building relationships with machines. People build relationships with people. But your career could be impacted not because you were displaced by a robot or an algorithm, but because you were displaced by someone who was more fluent, more comfortable, more able to challenge dominant logic and experiment with these new technologies to improve and enhance their ability to deliver value at the speed of need. So, the decisions, when I look about my career, the decisions I made 5, 10 years ago is why I am where I am now. 10 years ago, I decided I'm going to use social media to share my lessons learned. 10 years ago, I decided writing a book was important, creating a podcast. I would not be the first evangelist at Salesforce if it wasn't for the decisions I made 10 years ago. So the decisions you're making right now, as you're listening to Ian and I converse about AI, will shape where you're going to be 10 years from now, 5 to 10 years from now. And I promise you, if you decide AI is hype and I'm going to ignore it, I promise you, 5 to 10 years, hey, listen, you may win the lottery and you may be super lucky and have a wonderful life. But if you want to have a career helping businesses grow and lines of business grow, I would say make that decision right now. And you'll look back 5 to 10 years from now and you're going to say, man, that Ian podcast or this, video conversation really was rooted at the start of an AI career for me. And hopefully you can reach back to us and treat us to a coffee or something.
But I think it's also the level of optimism and passion associated with this. If we were sitting here going, yeah, but there's risks and we shouldn't do this and shouldn't do that, fine, there are going to be mistakes made. There always are. Yeah. But actually looking at it from a positive perspective and actually going, okay, how do I shape my career? And being open to the course corrections that you'll naturally make as you go through. I mean, a year ago, people said a prompt engineer was going to be a job title in the future. I don't see that happening now. I do see that a lot of the core skills that we've just talked about, data governance, business process analysis for breaking down silos and understanding where you're going to get the benefits, architecture. I think some of the core skills that maybe we haven't doubled down on are going to be important. And there are going to be a whole bunch of skills that you and I haven't even thought of yet. I'm sure you're probably already thinking about them for your next book. But there'll be a bunch of things that we'll discover the next things that actually are going to be important as we start to chart this new world.
Absolutely.
And I think building those partnerships, I mean, is going to be important. We no longer does a company have all the skills. I mean, Salesforce is partnering with OpenAI and the other large language model providers. It's also about building those partnerships.
Absolutely.
And understanding how to work with those partners.
Absolutely. And de-risk your thinking and your strategy and your planning by partnering with companies like Elements and Salesforce, because we've got over 1,000 Data Cloud customers. We have over 1,000 Einstein Copilot Studios customers. There is no line of business, there is no company size, there's no geography that's immune to use cases that we can demonstrate right now with our joint capabilities. So it could be an airport, it could be a tourism office, it could be a bank, a hospital. We're publishing customer use cases with emerging technologies using platforms like Data Cloud and Einstein for sales, service, commerce, marketing. So lean into your success manager, lean into your account executive, lean into your strategic partner. And this is what I used to do as a customer. I actually had quarterly lunch and learn sessions where I would invite nearby businesses, communities to come to my headquarters, and Salesforce would partner with me to have an afternoon of sharing best practice. I don't use best practice anymore. Things are moving too fast. So considered practice. It's fun. There were things I called best practice 2 years ago. Now it feels like we're rubbing sticks together. So it's considered practice. But the use cases are there, and the KPIs are there. When you mentioned London, when the largest airport I don't know if I can mention customer names on this conversation, but when the largest airport in England can now facilitate, I think, over 4,000 conversations a day, chatbots, and serve that high transit, especially Terminal 5. Last time I needed information, I was really glad that I had the app with me. Sometimes the window to get from one plane to another is really small. So you gotta get to where you gotta get to quickly, and access to information is important. So my point is, all company sizes, all geographies have not only implementation stories to share, but they can actually share, I saved 10% in accelerating sales cycle. I serviced tens of thousands of customers with an incredible CSAT and an incredible Net Promoter Score. So it wasn't case deflection for the sake of not talking to my customer. It was a different channel, one that was more friendly to them. Again, my 13-year-old son is a digital native. I'm a digital immigrant. I wasn't born mobile, social, in the cloud. So my son's approach of retrieving information, and information that is generated for him, has a different set of expectation and needs that I have. Of course, because I live with him, I'm trying to stay as a digital native or become one, but I'm not. It can't be, So de-risk your hesitancy for technologies like this by working with companies like yours and mine, and we will do whatever is necessary to connect you with perhaps companies that are further ahead in their journey, so you feel more comfortable, more safe. In some instances, you may be ahead. Isn't it amazing? I think the last time I spoke with you, we talked about wisdom is knowing that everyone you meet knows more about something than you do. Especially true when I speak with you offline. Every time I speak with you, you expand my mind, where I think I know a lot until I speak with you. When you're going through this journey, and I don't want to call it journey anymore, because when I think about 2023, that was kind of a journey of exploration. 2024 is going to be the year of adoption. So yeah, explore if you need to. We're still very early in the game. So you're not behind if you're simply exploring. But if you enter 25 and you're still exploring, like you don't have hands-on experience, you haven't done a pilot, you haven't watched a competitor or maybe a partner leverage the technology to do the typical same jobs that you're doing, I would humbly, in my opinion, you're falling behind. You're falling behind. So this year can't be about just reading about stuff. You need to think about doing work assisted with technologies like AI.
And we started this by saying that we're on the forefront. Actually, the people who are at GPT Dreaming, the people who will be at TDX, at Dreamforce, who are attending those AI sessions, don't think of those as competitors. We're actually all in this together, and this is all about how do we actually go and learn together, find the use cases, identify the companies we want to work with. I think that feeling of optimism, I think you summarized it beautifully, which is 2023 was the year of experimentation. 2024's got to be the year of adoption, and I think I think that's a clarion call for all of us. So thank you, Vala, for spending some time with us. I know again, every time I chat to you, we learn more, get different perspectives, and the same is true for everyone on the call. So thank you so much for joining us and kicking off GPT Dreaming.
Ian, you're a true trailblazer. You're a mentor. You're one of the big brains in the community. Thanks for your generosity. Thanks for your accessibility. Thanks for pushing us. Thanks for inspiring us. Thanks for just being an all-around good business partner. And we have a lot of work to do. And I appreciate the opportunity to share my thoughts with you. And I look forward to, as Steve Jobs once said, putting a dent in the universe with you and your team. So thank you so much. Thank you.
Hey, my pleasure. Thank you.